Digital marketers, this one's for you. I've got 30 seconds to tell you about Wix Studio, the web platform for agencies and enterprises. So here are a few things you can do in 30 seconds or less when you manage products on Wix Studio. Work in sync with your team on one canvas. Reuse templates, widgets, and sections across sites. Create a client kit for seamless handovers. And leverage best-in-class SEO defaults across all your Wix sites. Time's up, but the list keeps going. Step into Wix Studio to see more.
Hello and welcome to SEO 101 on WMR.FM, episode number 471. This is Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my co-host is my company's senior SEO, Scott Van Ack. How's it going today, bud?
Yeah, my usual answer, it's going great. And I will say that I had plans, and I just remembered right now, to use AI to come up with a better response to that question. And I totally forgot to do it. So next week, I'll hopefully say something more interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I won't have any faith in that. We'll see.
Well, I'll use the worst one AI gives me, and I'll go with it.
I want you to lead with this first piece here, sort of a tag on to the last show.
Yeah, this is a pretty quick one, but last episode we talked a bit about how Google had offered $23 billion to cybersecurity firm Wiz. On I think it was July 23rd, they turned down Google's offer. I can't imagine what it would feel like to say no to $23 billion. Just can't imagine it. The chief executive, Asaf Rappaport, maybe I'm saying that right, probably, said he's flattered by the offer, but he believes that they are big enough to go it alone and become the biggest cybersecurity company in the world. I guess we'll see. They're seeking to reach $1 billion in revenue before selling shares and going IPO. As of May, the company was valued at $12 billion, based on $1 billion in fundraising that they did. So, yeah, maybe $23 billion isn't a big enough number. I don't know, but I would probably still run giggling to the bank with that $23 billion. But probably. I'm just not as ambitious, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, split across the 5 or 4 guys who run that plus whatever. I mean, oh my gosh, obviously their goal isn't money, and that's the deal, I guess.
Yeah.
If it was, they wouldn't be doing that. They'd be going for it, because who needs more? That's crazy.
I do.
Yeah. Anyway, good for them, I guess. They're sticking to their guns, and maybe they can get that big. Google wouldn't be going for them if they didn't have a lot of potential. So that does say a lot.
Well, like I said to you earlier, look at Groupon. I don't think their valuation is anywhere near what Google offered them a decade ago. So I wish them luck, but it's risky.
Very risky. I wouldn't have wanted, even if I think about Groupon, they'd actually looked at the odds of them beating that. I mean, it's just incomprehensible. They should have gone for it. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So this is kind of a chuckle-worthy thing because, well, Google tries not to be evil, they say, but we all know it's not working. And this is pretty clearly another example of that. So one of the main things that Google's been trying to do over the last while is comply with all this the privacy, and they're all about privacy. And they're pushing it, and they just slaughtered a whole bunch of the data that SEOs can have, and some of it's just ridiculous. But anyway, the end goal was to remove third-party cookies in Chrome. That way, essentially, a lot of businesses over the last couple of years have been freaked out, going, okay, we're going to have to somehow survive in a cookieless environment. Well, Google has scrapped plans to kill third-party cookies in Chrome. Obviously, it's self-serving, but they're going to introduce a new experience in Chrome that gives users more control. That's their pitch. This will allow users to make more informed choices about their web privacy. They're trying to be compliant with regulators, and they're in talks with them now. I don't know how they're going to react. It better be, opt in instead of opt out. I think that's going to be one of the big things that's pushed. However, I don't know. I somehow doubt that'll happen. We'll see. Maybe in European only uses. It's not a stunning roundabout, really, just because I couldn't fathom how they could stay profitable if they lost Chrome's cookies. Chrome is the most popular browser, and they own it.
Yep.
And we know now they're getting data from it. There's just so much that they could lose from this, and it's no surprise that they're turning this around. Maybe it's a surprise that it's finally happened, but yeah, I didn't know. Honestly, I couldn't see how they could get around it, and I'm glad that they're being more transparent. We'll see what happens. All right, WordPress releases 6.61 to fix fatal errors in 6.6. There's a bunch of non-SEO news right now, but this is stuff that's pretty important to everyone that's listening who may have a WordPress site or cares about any kind of advertising, such as the cookies issue and so on. So what's this all about, Scott?
Yeah, so our regular PSA, we mention these ones with WordPress every now and then. So 6.6, which was released last week, so around the middle of July, depending when you're listening to us. The update had a bunch of fatal errors. They had 6 fatal errors in particular, 6 errors. 2 that were fatal errors caused fatal errors to the website. 1 that caused security plugins to issue false warnings, and then several, I guess that would be 3, that created unwanted UI changes, such as automatically underlining links on a site. And I guess there was a big issue with Divi in particular. If you had updated WordPress, all your links on your site would automatically be underlined if you were using Divi. And this is not a Divi issue. This is a WordPress issue. So sometimes you want them underlined, but sometimes you don't, right? And so Divi actually introduced a fix immediately so that you could fix it even though it wasn't their problem to fix, which is great that they did that. But now 6.61 WordPress solves these problems. So if you updated last week, you're doing it again. And as we always say, and you can know what I'm going to say and predict it, is back up first. I don't want anybody updating and not backing up and then yelling at me because they broke everything. So,
yeah,
but it should be a pretty safe update.
Good. Well, let's hope. They're being pretty good. I mean, they're pretty fast with their fixes, and I've been very impressed. And I mean, issues happen, and WordPress has just been a pretty darn good platform, and that's why we continue to work with it. So that's good to see. So Google is testing larger site names and favicons. What does this mean? So, we talked about what happens in the wild of the internet, and there's often, and this is from the Search Engine Roundtable, which is not a surprise because Barry loves to keep on top of all these little changes. In this case, tests, and in this case, favorite icons. Those are the ones that are. It's technically called a favicon, Favicon. And what that means is if someone bookmarked your page and they would look at their bookmarks later, they'd see a little icon that you've created and generated for your website. It also appears anytime you drag and drop the bookmark or drag and drop a URL from your browser onto your desktop. And in this case, it shows up in search results, which is great and definitely something people are going to take advantage of. I've already been seeing it for quite a while in different aspects of it, but now they're testing larger ones and site names. And is that just different font size in this case?
Yeah, so they've increased the font size of the site name, so it's larger just for the name. So it'll grab a bit of attention. I feel like in some situations it may help the site owner with that listing, but because everybody's getting the same treatment, it's not really going to make you stand out amongst the competition that's there. But it might help with some branding. It'd be interesting to see if people see any sort of increase in traffic as a result of this.
Yeah, well, it depends how widespread it is. If it was just noticed in a certain part of USA, which is usually where they test it, or if it's being rolled out widely. Do you know about that or not? Or
well, I don't, but I do know it's not working for me. Yeah, so go Canada. Google will maybe care about us someday, but not today. It is a good reminder, though. If you don't have a favicon, you probably should have one by now. It's pretty rare I see sites that don't have them, but if you don't, definitely get them. get one because you're going to be missing out in those search results.
Yeah, and if you care and you want to do one, you don't want to get fleeced, make sure to do a little research. I can't remember which ones they are, but there's some ones that charge a fair bit of money just to create a favicon for you, whereas you can literally create them very simply in other systems and sometimes even for free. So, do a little homework. It's worth it. And they are really quite cool when you got them in place. All right, now into SEO news. Billions of Google redirects are going to stop working next year. And these are the redirects that are created by the goo.gl. So Google shortened URLs. These were launched back in 2009, and they stopped allowing it to be any further URLs to be created back in March 2019. As of August 23rd, 2024, goo.gl, Google Links, will start displaying an interstitial page notifying users that the link will no longer be supported. In other words, it's going to say, this is shutting down, and then complete removal will be August 25th, 2025. You don't want this to show up for any of the links you put out there.
No.
Hopefully you haven't done it for anything super important. I think I don't know. I don't know how many people used it. Whenever I used it, I did it sparingly because frankly, we've been burned too many times. And that comes down to one main thing. Never, ever, ever rely on Google to stick to anything they launch. They constantly test and shut things down. It's just not worth your time. Play with it, sure, but don't put a lot of emphasis on it. I mean, I used a few Google links, but I never did it anything I needed to rely on.
Yeah.
Majestic SEO, which is a great thing for looking at links and doing a little research there, they estimated that there's 3.6 billion goo.gl links still in place and 36 billion historically. Wow.
It's a few.
So few people used it.
Yeah, so definitely, if you're using them currently, there's just a couple things you need to note. That interstitial page that Ross mentioned, Google did say that it may break some links. So if you're redirecting to a page that's now redirected itself, like a 302 redirect, that might break that redirect. If you're directing to a page that has embedded social metadata, I'm not sure why it would break it, but it might break those. If you're worried about that, you can update. I don't know why you'd update, change them completely, but if you need to, you could update it and add a parameter, SI = 1, and Google will not show that interstitial page. So that's an option, a temporary option, but really you need to start going through now. You've got a year and a half, change every single one on your site now to just direct exactly to the source. But if you want to use a shortener, you can switch that out, but you've got about a year, so get on it.
Yeah, and something like Bitly is not going away, and it's very simple.
Yeah.
But yeah, the safest thing is what you said there. Is just use your own URL or a straight link. Simple as pie. You can even buy your own account and create your own shortened URL.
Yeah.
So that's another option as well. Lots of options out there right now instead of relying on these big guys who, frankly, you have no control over. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some tips on how to improve your SEO through internal links.
SEO 101 will be back right after recess.
Welcome back to SEO 101 on WMR.fm, hosted by myself, Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my company's senior SEO, Scott Vanak. All right. Google is sharing tips to improve SEO through internal links. This is an article from Search Engine Journal. Why don't you share a little bit about this, Scott?
Yeah, so this is pretty basic stuff. Any SEOs out there are going to know this anyways, but if you are, listening to SEO 101, it's 101 for a reason. So in a recent SEO Made Easy video series with Google's Martin Splitt, he provided 3 guidelines for improving SEO. In relation to internal linking. So the first, and it just seems so obvious, but I think it's useful to be a reminder for some people out there. Use descriptive anchor text for internal links. And he actually gave a couple examples. It's hard for me to show them, so I'll just sort of summarize them. One example of something meaningful might be anchor text that uses things like our products, our services, request support, product names, keyword names if it makes sense. And to avoid things like learn more, here, click here as your link anchor text. It's common sense, but not always. When I do audits or when I work on new client websites, I still see links that say click here all the time, all the time. And you're missing out. And, word things differently so that there's context around that anchor text. Next is balancing link quantity to avoid overwhelming users. And this again is, don't use more links than you have to. When it comes to writing blog posts, clients will ask me often, how many links should I put in the post? And it's one of those it depends questions, but you don't want to have dozens and dozens and dozens of links in a given post most of the time. There might be exceptions. There's always exceptions to everything. I tend to recommend, say, 3 or 4, but really you need to go with what's natural, what works for the article, what you're trying to talk about. But don't link every instance of a keyword in an article because you think it's going to help. It's not. It's overwhelming to users. It's spammy. Google doesn't like it. So just, be sparing. Use your links sparingly within content.
And also consider that it's not just content. Your own structure of your website, the navigation, all that plays a role as well. So don't link to every single page of your site. If it's maybe if it's a small site, fine, but in a fairly large site from your menu,
Yes.
Work in silos wherever possible. So if you've got different types of boats for sale, or let's say different models, you pick Boston Whaler. And then when they go to the Boston Whaler section, there's a whole submenu system. And then Google can index that or crawl that information within each of those subsets, those silos, and get restricted to just content about Boston Whalers, just content about Brady White in a separate one, whatever. It's all very simple, very straightforward. And again, you don't overwhelm not only users, but search engines, and it becomes a better experience. It's much better. Plus internal linking between articles, between pages, between PDFs, whatever it might be. Just salt and pepper, just a little bit here and there, wherever it makes good sense and you're adding value.
Perfect.
What was the last piece on that?
Yeah, and the last thing is to use proper HTML elements for your linking. And this is it's funny how many people, well, not a lot of people don't do this, but so use the A tag. So if you're thinking HTML code, it's just like an A with a space, an href, and the URL. It's like old school standard HTML. And linking using that tech, Google can follow it. All the spiders and crawlers can follow it. And try to avoid using fancy technology. When you start going fancy, like it used to be Flash, don't use Flash. Well, no one's really using Flash anymore. But now, there's certain ways there's just all kinds of technology you can use. We did an audit not too long ago, and the client site had, I can't remember how many pages, but thousands of pages, but only 4 or 5 were actually indexed in Google. And what had happened is they weren't using standard navigation. They were using something fancy, and you couldn't even see the links in the source code. The site functioned properly, but it was using all kinds of weird JavaScript. And so they were going to fix all of that. It was just an audit, and then they didn't work with us again after that. So hopefully they fixed that. They said they were going to, but using crazy technology is just not necessarily crazy, but new technology is sometimes great, but it can also be a risk. So, code your links the old fashioned way, and they will work.
Yeah. Don't get too fancy. If you do, there's always a risk.
Yep.
All right. Now we have a Mueller file. It's been a while since I've said that. I had to do it. Yes. Google is cautioning exponential content growth can cause re-evaluation. So I love this because it's very logical, and I think inherently a lot of SEO is logical. So this is just a nice subset of that. John Mueller answered a question about the impact of significant website growth. The question was, what's the impact of a huge expansion of our product portfolio on SEO performance? For example, going from 10,000 products to 100,000 products. His answer is, I don't think you have to look for exotic explanations. If you grow a website significantly, in this case by a factor of 10, then your website will overall be very different. By definition, the old website would only be 10% of the new website. This means it's only logical to expect search engines to reevaluate how they show your website. It's basically a new website after all. So, unquote there, it's good to be strategic about changes. He says, oh, actually, no, this is more of his quote, isn't it? It's good to be strategic about changes like this. I wouldn't look at it as being primarily an SEO problem. unquote. Yes, I agree. He didn't state how long reevaluation could take, and previously he had suggested it can just take months. In 2021, he said, quote, "It takes a lot of time for us to understand how a website fits in with regards to the rest of the internet. And that's something that can easily take, I don't know, a couple of months, a half a year, sometimes even longer than half a year for us to recognize significant changes in the site's overall quality," unquote. So if you're going to make big changes, do it in small chunks. Don't do it exponentially all at once. If you have to, you have to, but just realize you're going to be facing some issues. And if your website is the basis of your financial stability, be very careful. This could really mess things up for you. And I can't imagine why anyone would go from 10,000 to 100,000 at once. I can see people growing that much, but I just can't fathom doing that once anyway. So hopefully it's not a common issue.
I could think of a couple examples offhand. I'm going to say them just because people might not think of these as situations like that. One might be if you are, say, a brick and mortar store and you've got a small standard website and now you're going online with your products. Maybe you're introducing a shopping cart. So you might go from, a 20, 30 page website. Maybe you've got 10,000 products that you sell and now they're suddenly all being put online. Or if you're merging a couple businesses, if you acquired somebody and now both businesses are coming together in one website, you're going to have one of those sites is going to grow presumably grow substantially right away. Or if you're like, hey, let's go AI crazy and just start dumping out content, maybe don't, or think very carefully. You really want to plan carefully, and you don't want to put out 100,000 pages in a day unless you really need to do that. So
yeah. I mean, I was specifically thinking products, but
yes,
it goes without saying that that kind of increase in terms of content would be a bad idea.
Although, in fairness, there are examples. I can't think of the company offhand that did this last year or the year before. They just went nuts with content creation and their rankings went through the roof. Their traffic went into the millions, and then it crashed and burned after a couple months to nothing.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the classic spam tactic when a new service comes out or a new capability. And that was when ChatGPT first launched. There's this example. They took it to the max, which is what spammers do. And then they profited heavily from it and tanked at the end, which is what they expect. This is totally not surprising to them. They're already working on other things while that thing is generating income. We've known people over the years, Scott and I personally, who do this on a regular basis. It's just their life, and they make money hand over fist. But it is a stressful world I would not want to be involved in. Never mind the ethics of it.
No kidding.
Anyway, it does work, and this will always be taken advantage of. And this is why Google is so tight-lipped about certain things, and we can't blame them in those many circumstances anyway. All right, from a local SEO news perspective, I wanted to come back to the pin hack I talked about in the last, I think it was the last episode or the one before. It's all kind of blending. So this is the pin hack where someone could take your Google business profile pin in the maps and suggest a move to a new location. Google often just goes, yes, because it's stupid. It does have no way to fit. I get so mad about this. But anyway, they just say, okay, you must know what you're talking about, so we're going to move it. And businesses lose all their rankings, and it's just a mess. Well, unfortunately, in a local search forum today, Joey Hawkins noted that, quote, it's still happening. People are still sending me examples. Do not move the pin back inside the dashboard yourself. Instead, suggest an edit on Google Maps using a different Google account to move it back, unquote. Very, very important. That's one of the more realized fixes for this right now. Talked about other ways I had to do it for an existing client, but this seems to be the most rapid way to fix it. Of course, once you've done it, there's no telling whether that person will come back and just change it back again. So you have to be on top of this if you're a target, and you certainly will know by that point.
It's too bad that the technology doesn't exist to have like a verified account user being required to move a pin.
Right?
It's like tech 101. Like, why don't you just make them log in to change it? Like, it's so easy to make this a non-issue.
Or just confirm it with the owner. Like,
Yeah. They get an email. They have to click confirm, accept change. Like it's a no brainer. I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I wish there was some common sense to that. Yeah, no,
It's
they didn't bother with any.
especially in this world where 2FA, which I hate but is necessary, is being pushed so hard on everybody. And this is like zero FA. I don't know, like zero factor authentication. Yeah, anybody can do it. Like I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
And Google just doesn't seem to care because it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. It has to. They have to know that they are literally the linchpin for people's whole financial life. I mean, Google business profiles can be all of the money for some businesses. It's just no way to. I have a hard time putting into words. I get so upset. And to be polite about it, it's gone so far past ridiculous now that this hasn't been fixed, and that I just don't understand. I just don't. There has to be some ethical people at Google that want to fix this, but maybe they're being held back. I just can't conceive of it. Anyway, and more on the spam front. Locksmiths. Locksmiths are infamous in the Google business profile world. They are one of the worst spammers known to the local profile world, and they really were one of the first business types to completely manipulate Google business profiles and start Google's concern about spam, which, well, obviously they knew it was coming, but they've done things so badly. For the longest time, when they first started, they were saying, I'm located here, I'm located there. In a city, let's say they wanted to be in New York and they wanted to be found in New York, they would have a location in every single borough of New York, and they'd say, I'm at this address. Well, you'd go to their address and it's I don't know, it's either empty or it's a pharmacy or whatever, but they would say they're there, and Google would just blindly accept it. And all of a sudden, anyone who needed a locksmith would find this one business, because this business is so close by to them wherever they're searching for one, because Google believes it is close by. It's just not, though. Sometimes they wouldn't even have a physical location. That was nipped in the butt, and that's why verification came into play, where you have to get a message sent to your home. Sometimes they're doing video verification. Sometimes they require a business license, proof of a business license, I think, which is a great idea. I just imagine it's hard for them to scale that. With AI, though, you'd think that they could fix that. Just upload it and AI will look at it and go, yep, this is authentic. Anywho, it's apparent now that, once again, that Google is so broken, because somehow an entire spam network of locksmith profiles were all verified and are kicking butt in rankings, despite the fact that they are using the voice over IP numbers that all go to the same call center. So they're not even authentic numbers that are attributed to an address. They're updating their Google profiles often to appear as though they're a busy live business. Most of this information is copied across all the profiles separately, but because Google's just not sophisticated about spam on local businesses, they don't notice this. None of the business names are registered in the province of Ontario. This is all happening in Toronto, by the way. And there's over 150 spam listings for this one business. None of the business names are registered, and all of the websites that were created look the same and were likely only created for the profiles. Wow. Congratulations, Google. Like, that's just amazing work. Keep it up.
It sounds disgustingly easy to spot, and that's what I don't get about it. It's not like this is a sophisticated spam technique that Google can't figure out how to crack down on. It's obvious. It's easy, you would think.
It's so hard.
Is it 1998 again?
It totally is. In local SEO world, it is. It's unreal. We could use all our old spam techniques that we read about, and frankly, we used back then because we didn't know. Well, at that time, it wasn't considered spam. And we would kick butt if we wanted to be unethical. But you're literally destroying other people's businesses. And I just can't figure out why anyone would. I don't know. I know why people do it. They're greedy, but it's just insane. All right, into AI news. And we have one particular article here that also jives with one of our last, it kind of dovetails into one of our last discussions on SEO and how could AI do SEO technically, and why couldn't it? So I'm not going to get deeply into this, but it's a Search Engine Land article called Could AI Eventually Make SEO Obsolete? The main takeaway is that as long as users need to search for information, search engine optimization is going to remain essential. AI does enhance SEO practices, yes, but human expertise in crafting detailed responses and prompts and technical analysis is still crucial for optimal results. And we don't see that changing anytime soon. There's just too much nuance to what we do. And I say that coming from the perspective of obviously an SEO, but we're always paying attention to this because we want to find ways to do our job better and with less effort. Why not? It's just practical and makes sense. But we also want to be sure that we're on the cutting edge of the stuff when things change. So yeah, we're paying attention to this quite closely, and it just isn't there yet, not even remotely close. So don't rely on anything that's supposed to do everything for you using AI. It's going to be a big mistake, very big mistake. All right. Well, on behalf of myself, Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my company's senior SEO, Scott Van Ack, thank you for joining us today. Remember, we have a show notes newsletter you can sign up for at SEO101radio.com. And have a great week. Remember to tune into future episodes, which air every week on WMR.fm.
Sweet. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Digital marketers, this one's for you. I've got 30 seconds to tell you about Wix Studio, the web platform for agencies and enterprises. So here are a few things you can do in 30 seconds or less when you manage products on Wix Studio. Work in sync with your team on one canvas. Reuse templates, widgets, and sections across sites. Create a client kit for seamless handovers. And leverage best-in-class SEO defaults across all your Wix sites. Time's up. But the list keeps going. Step into Wix Studio to see more.